The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's 2021 Virtual Behavioral Health Forum session. My name is Kevin McCall, and I am the supervisor of the McLean County Triage Center. Today, I will be standing in for Behavioral Health Coordinating Council Supervisor Tricia Malott, who could not be with us this afternoon. To start, I'd like to talk for a second about the forum itself. The McLean County Community Behavioral Health Forum is typically a one-day event consisting of multiple breakout sessions. With the ongoing global pandemic, we have adapted our in-person format, and this is now our second year holding the forum virtually. We are pleased to offer a wide variety of individual sessions related to behavioral health that will be offered through November. Please check our website for a full list of these sessions. We have several still remaining, and all registration is free. You can even register the same day. Sessions are held at varying times, but all presentations, including those from last year's forum, are uploaded to the McLean County Behavioral Health YouTube page. I'll provide links for both our website and the YouTube page in the chat that's located on your sidebar. The idea of free community education, the highlighting of available community resources, and sharing of ideas through the Behavioral Health Forum originated out of the Mental Health Action Plan, which was adopted by the 2015 McLean County Board. This plan originated out of more than 100 community members that identified needs and best practices related to behavioral health specific to McLean County. In these uncertain and difficult times, we believe that it is important more than ever to help provide education, resources, encouragement, and even simply recognition of life's challenges. During today's presentation, there will be time for questions at the end. We ask that if you choose to ask a question during the presentation, that you provide enough context so that questions can be appropriately answered by our speakers at the end. I will also be our moderator for today's session, and our today's panel features three different community professionals, one of which cannot be viewed up there but is with us today. I'm going to have these individuals go ahead and introduce themselves real quick. First, I have Neil Iden from Project Oz.
Hi, everybody. My name's Neil. I'm from Project Oz. My pronouns are he, him. I also worked I currently work with homeless youth 18 to 23 at Project Oz. Previously, I worked at PATH working with homeless adults. I'm also the former president of our local chapter of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and still a current support group facilitator and board member of that agency.
Terrific. Next, we have Debbie Reese from Home Sweet Home Ministries.
Hi, everybody. I am the Director of Client Services at Home Sweet Home, which means that I supervise all the case managers and the residential associates that help at the front desk and the kitchen and the co-op. And so it's really good to be with you today.
Thank you very much, Debbie. And lastly, we have Joanna Callahan from Safe Harbor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joanna Callahan. I'm with the Salvation Army of Bloomington. I'm the social services director here, so I oversee the Safe Harbor Shelter program as well as our other assistance programs like our food pantry and financial assistance programming. But like I said, a majority of my work takes place here in the shelter. Previous to serving in the director role, I was a case manager here for about 5 years.
Awesome, thank you so much. So just to kick off today's panel, I want to reiterate some of what the objectives are, and these were listed when you went and signed up for this session. So the objectives for this panel are to increase attendees' awareness of mental health challenges commonly facing those with both a lack of housing and mental health conditions, knowledge of special challenges created by homeless individuals because of their mental health challenges, to increase understanding of how our community currently responds to these situations, and also to increase knowledge of current resources and thoughts for positive change for the future. So our first question to kind of kick us off, and this is for the group, and anyone can kind of answer first. We're going to have a very organic session here. Just kind of chime in whenever you feel you have an answer or you want to elaborate on an answer that was previously given. In the population of homeless individuals you work with, what mental health challenges appear to be most common?
I can start out because I asked my case managers that this morning, what they would say, and their answers were social anxiety, being housed in a congregate setting as we have, obtaining regular treatment, the side effects of mental health medications, as well as depression, knowing how to handle emotions, again, anxiety, transportation, childcare, self-care techniques, and at Home Sweet Home, we don't allow use of alcohol or drugs. And since the legalization of THC, that's a tough one because people use that a lot for anxiety, and trying to not use that while they're at Home Sweet Home is rough. We're a little looser on that than we are on other things.
Yeah, and Debbie, I'm really glad that you mentioned substance use disorder, because obviously, you know, that is a mental health condition. Usage might start as ways to cope with anxiety or with depression, usage of various substances, including alcohol, but then long-term turns into a condition in and of itself that increases the barriers that people have to making some changes in their life and accessing the services they need to relieve themselves from homelessness.
That's right.
Yeah, in the Salvation Army Safe Harbor, we serve those that are 18 and up, and just about on average, about 40% of the folks that we serve identify that they have some type of mental health concern. One thing that's a little bit unique about our program is that we're a low barrier shelter, in the sense that, you know, we don't have any drug or alcohol screens or mandatory mental health medication or treatment compliance at entry to the program. And we really work to get people set up with supportive services, you know, once they get in, but that does leave us serving, I would almost say a larger chunk of those with significant mental health concerns, you know, than maybe other programs in other communities, because, you know, some folks that serve kiddos or other vulnerable populations need to be more mindful about who they're admitting. So it's a pretty good portion. I mean, we have some folks that have the more, you know, serious mental health concerns, you know, with symptoms like delusions and hallucinations and things along those lines, as well as those ones that we see more frequently, like anxiety and depression. And then a good amount of those that, you know, are living with a substance use concern as well.
So this question
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that Home Sweet Home does serve families. We serve men, women, and children. So that does kind of put a different spin on things.
Yeah, absolutely. So this question was phrased as, what are challenges that appear to be common? And that's a really broad word to use. So I'm curious, are there challenges that homeless people face, specifically when seeking out services with your organizations? What are the biggest challenges in that regard?
One of the unique challenges that Project Oz clients who are seeking shelter face is isolation. Someone is staying at one of the shelters, they have peers there, they have staff there. We use a different model for our emergency shelter that puts some independence on them. So a big challenge that we face is when we have someone who comes to us who is experiencing mental health challenges, you know, either you know, acute in the moment or long term. We are very concerned about that isolation. It has led in some cases to folks not getting shelter services through us because of those concerns. And that's something that Joanna and Debbie's clients don't face because they have those extra supports right there.
What does happen though in a congregate setting is somebody who, as Joanna had said, has some severe mental wellness issues, trying to live with others who may or may not be as patient. Because, you know, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, wow, I hope I get to be in a shelter today. And so they're struggling already. And then to have someone in your room who is doing something a little unsettling adds a lot of pressure. We also have had, and it'll be interesting to see what the other panelists say about this. We've had residents who have trouble getting into treatment somewhere. Drug and alcohol especially, because the pandemic has been awful, as you all know, with substance abuse. And so we might have somebody that is willing to go into treatment and there are no openings. We also in McLean County seem to not have enough psychiatrists. Even, I mean, I thought we had a plethora of counselors, but we had residents having a hard time getting to counseling, especially without insurance. So that's a real struggle.
And I would say for the Salvation Army, I mean, it definitely mirrors, you know, our shelter program is congregate as well. And then on top of being congregate, instead of having, you know, set rooms with a certain amount of rooms for, you know, 5 in this room, so on and so forth, there's actually 40 beds in the men's dorm and 18 beds in the women's dorm. So they're super close and spend a lot of time with one another, you know, and, you know, that kind of self-care and building in time where they can truthfully, you know, sit and be with themselves and think and work, you know, getting creative and utilizing different spaces in the community, perhaps going like to the library or something like that to have some quiet time. But with the pandemic, that was kind of that was definitely more of a challenge. And then, you know, kind of mirroring what Debbie said, the lack of the psychiatry services and access to medications has been really, really challenging. We've had to take people to Gibson City just so that they can get a refill on their medications, or, you know, navigating those alongside them, especially with, you know, some practices going to more telehealth services and having the technology for the residents to use so that they can maintain those important connections with their providers and supports in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then having a private place for those telehealth meetings. You know, if they're talking to a counselor, they don't want to do it in the lounge, obviously, where everybody else is. So, and at first, when the pandemic first began, people were very hesitant to talk to their counselor over the phone or via video chat. It seems like people are getting used to that now, that it's kind of the norm. And so, but it is a problem for us to make sure that there is a place that gets good Wi-Fi in the building that is private.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, you know, COVID challenged a lot of us in various ways, especially you guys, to come up with new solutions for, you know, how to problem solve for all of these community members that need, you know, access to your services. And with those solutions came even more problems that needed more solutions, right? So it's a never ending game of trying to figure out how to best serve our community members. But in the same vein of utilizing resources, how does mental health in general impact someone that is trying to get out of homelessness?
Mm. Well, again,
I guess I would say,
no, you go ahead, Joanna.
I guess I would say, you know, one thing that I see when we're working with folks that, you know, have mental health concerns is there's a lot of stigma attached to it. They've experienced a significant amount of just negativity, poor responses, you know, and it takes, you know, some confidence to go out into the community and you know, complete the goals on their service plan when, you know, they recall, you know, previous trauma or you know, negative interactions that they've had in the past, and being able to recognize, you know, that there are folks that want to see them do well and want to see them get the help that they need. But I think it's almost just getting on top of the hill and getting ready. You know, it's definitely a process, kind of battling, you know, self-doubt, battling community perspectives, battling, you know, things, symptoms of their mental illness that interfere with them being able to communicate effectively. It's definitely deeply rooted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to go along with what Joanna said, it takes us a while to build trust as the case managers and everyone that works at Home Sweet Home, because society teaches those that are dealing with homelessness or those with mental wellness concerns. It teaches the individuals to not trust because of the way we treat them as a society. And so it takes us a while to let them know that we are on their side, that we are encouraging them, and that we are not the enemy. You know, we want to see them succeed. And so trying to get them to work with us and for us to meet them where they are and to try to figure out what it is that they might be afraid of us. I also see times when their anxiety just paralyzes them. You know, I have said for a long time that the pandemic has done more than make people physically ill with COVID or cause them to lose their jobs because of COVID. The pandemic was a scary thing, or is a scary thing. And in some cases, that just paralyzes people. And so in terms of I know that a lot of property managers would say, if the resident would just come to me and work with me, but there's a lot of fear and distrust there. And so to stand up and say, hey, I need help, that's a rough thing for people who have learned not to trust.
I always like to think of it in terms of, you know, basic hierarchy of needs. It's
Right.
nearly impossible to start working on those higher level safety and security, belonging, until you have your basic needs met. And so somebody who might be struggling with that, who may be sheltered, may be sleeping outside. We do have plenty of people who are sleeping in places not meant for human habitation right now, folks. I'm not certain that you know, that is it's common knowledge, but for those folks who are dealing with that very basic, I need to figure out where my next meal is coming from. I need to figure out a safe place to sleep tonight. Even those folks who are in shelter, then they have a physical place to stay. They might not necessarily feel secure there because, you know, we're working to build that relation. It doesn't happen. And then to ask them, okay, we need to go, you know, top level and start opening up these traumas and starting having you work on those and get that support. Yes, they absolutely need that, but it is incredibly difficult to open up like that. So, I mean, just from that aspect, you know, HUD used to go for a housing first, and we'd have people that we'd put into housing knowing that they can't start working on those issues until that happens. Kind of moved away from that because the support to the level that we need and our people deserve isn't there yet. We don't have enough counselors. We don't have enough supportive services for someone to get that right away, and that's been a real challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask the group then, since this is kind of a common theme, it's one that I deal with in my own professional work too, is trying to build rapport quickly. How have you guys found success with that and getting people engaged with services quickly when you're not able to deal with all of those things immediately, or jump into, therapy with an individual. How do you build that trust and rapport to get them engaged in services?
The way we do it is every one of our staff is trained in trauma-informed care, and we talk about that a lot. And so as soon as they come in, we try to help them feel safe, emotionally safe as well as physically safe. We have them sign any ROIs, the release of information, and let them know that if anybody calls for them, we say every time, we can't confirm or deny that that person is here. So if your mother calls, we can't confirm or deny that that person is here, no matter who it is, unless you have an ROI for them and want us to. Nobody's going to know that you're here. Everything that happens is confidential. We are here to help you. And, I love seeing. I have a woman in mind that I saw come in and was terrified, just terrified. And she just sat in our lobby for a while. She was a new resident. She sat in our lobby for a while, and we just chatted with her. The staff just chatted with her and about nothing, not about her life, but just about nothing. And by dinner time, she felt safe. So it's just those interactions that aren't necessarily they're not supposed to be intentionally therapeutic, just a normal interaction that lets them know that we care about them.
Terrific. Okay. So in general, dealing with homelessness, how do you guys see the community currently responding to the homelessness issue? What kind of resources are available, and what would happen to a typical individual if, say, you become homeless tomorrow, actually street homeless? What kind of resources are available, and how does the community currently respond to this issue?
Well, generally, somebody who is having that issue, we would love for them to get in touch with PATH first, just to get some basic information. But anybody can call 211 to reach PATH, and based on their situation and where they are, who makes up their family, PATH would direct them to the right place. We have a Home Sweet Home and Salvation Army, Project Oz. We have a DV shelter here in town, a Neville House through MCCA. So based on the reason, that would get them to the right place to get started. And we all have our own different intake procedures, but I think just in general, that's probably the best place. Second thing, that if phones are not available, I'd probably send somebody over to go see you, Kevin. Over to the triage center that's open at all times, so that somebody who's trying to make a plan to figure out where they need to go, if that could be first point of contact even before anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, if you don't know where to send someone, you can always send them to the McLean County Triage Center, and that's our job, is to find out where people need to be and where they're going to be best served.
Yeah, I agree with Neil. That's the best places. PATH does an excellent job, just an excellent job of triaging a lot of things and getting them in the right places. And I think that's the best way to. We get phone calls from individuals that say, "Hey, I saw somebody that was homeless. Can you bring them in?" And it's not the person themselves calling, but it's a community member that cares about somebody. And so that's one way we get, at least we first hear about somebody, or the police might reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've got somebody, do you have any room?" So there are lots of ways to go, but PATH is certainly well suited for that.
Okay, so one.
Kevin, I'm not sure. Can anybody else hear you? There you go.
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Thank you very much. So I'm curious, in terms of the community response, we've highlighted what some of these resources are, and I'll ask you guys to talk more specifically about resources that are available through your organizations. But what is the process for bringing in a client or an individual to start using or utilizing your resources? How do you guys respond to these situations once you are contacted by PATH or law enforcement?
Well, I can start. We have a screening process, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, and then I'll tell you why we do it. We have from 10 to 11, Monday through Friday. We have a time when individuals can come in and we talk to them and try to figure out if we are the best setting for them. Sometimes we're not. You know, they may be better suited at the Salvation Army, or if they are younger, we send them to Project Oz, and so we just want them to be in the best place. They have to have a valid ID unless the DMV is closed for months at a time, as it was during the pandemic. And then and then we decide whether or not we are a good fit for them. If we are, then we try to bring them in as quickly as possible. They have to get a clearance card from the police just to make sure they're safe with us and that they're not wanted somewhere. And then we bring them in as quickly as possible and try to get them settled. One of the things that's happened, we go back and forth about having longer screening times rather than an hour a day, Monday through Friday. And what we have found, and we also do emergency intakes. If it's a mom and kids who are sleeping on the streets, you know, that's an emergency. If somebody's house burned down, that's an emergency. If somebody's fleeing from domestic violence, that's an emergency. So we do those intakes, and then we do the screenings afterwards and decide if we were the right place. But we have found that the majority of folks that come to us, if we say, hey, our screenings are done for today, can you come in tomorrow? Most of them say yes. And when push comes to shove, they can actually find somewhere and somebody to sleep with for that night. They can couch surf, or they go back to the situation that they really wanted to get out of. Not that it was a dangerous situation, but they just didn't want to be there. So we have found people, I don't know what percentage it would be, but that actually find their own solutions when we say, you know, can you wait till tomorrow? I'm not saying that that's a solution to homelessness. But as we have looked at it, we thought, you know, if it's an emergency, we'll bring them in. But sometimes they work it out with that boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, parent, kid, whatever it is, when they don't have an easy way out into another place. So that's kind of the system that we use to bring people in. We don't do drug tests on the way in, because, you know, we don't care what they've done. It's what they're going to do. We want them to be sober while they're with us.
Okay. And then I guess same question to you, Neil. If you were contacted by, and I'm not sure exactly how resources would necessarily work through your organization, but if you're contacted by law enforcement or PATH, how does that, you know, process kind of begin, or if someone refers themselves?
Well, we have somebody on call 24 hours a day at Project Oz. PATH would get calls after hours, either from law enforcement or otherwise, and refer. So anybody age 10 to 23 in McLean County and Livingston County as well. You know, we are contacted for, you know, for under 18. You know, we have kind of a different process where we have, you know, what we call host homes that they can stay in temporarily while we work to make arrangements with family to find some other longer term solution. Usually that's just a night or so. For those who are older than that, we go through a safety screen. We you know, just make certain that there's not any immediate concerns before entering them into our temporary shelter, which, you know, can be shorter or longer just depending on what our availability is. Folks who are not necessarily quite yet homeless, but might be in danger of that, will apply we start working with them, case managers like myself, to meet with them, try to see what barriers we have to housing, and can we help them navigate that prior to looking at shelter. In fact, quite a lot of youth are kind of on the cusp of that. They just need a little bit of help that they haven't been able to find elsewhere to build into self-sufficiency. And we can provide assistance in a lot of those different manners. We also, do have a housing program, longer term transitional housing, that we work to get our clients into.
Okay, and then Joanna, the same question kind of to you. Your response to these situations when you receive a referral from 211 or law enforcement or a self-referral, what is that kind of initial process, or your response to LEO or 211, how that process works interacting with them?
Sure, yeah. So we are open and staffed 24 hours a day and are able to do intakes at any time. We do have a couple of steps very similar to what Debbie had mentioned, prior to admission. They will need to get a clearance card from the Bloomington Police Department. In order to obtain that, they will need to have a photo ID. If for some reason they don't have an ID, or the front desk of the police department is closed, I believe they don't do them overnight for like kind of the third shift. We have a process for a temporary admission to shelter, kind of checking their background locally based on the documents that they do have, usually connecting them with other resources to make sure they can get on the ball with getting their photo ID. And then we just see if we have beds available. So as long as we have a bed available, in a traditional world, we would do the short intake form with them and get them everything that they need, make sure that they feel welcome and safe. But one adjustment that we have had to make in light of COVID is that everybody admitted into shelter does have to have a negative COVID test prior to admission. We ask that it be done within the last 48 hours with that negative result. And the reason that we have that is because our dorms are completely congregate. So should we get, one person that's positive, it affects, the other, say 33 people or whomever are in, the dorm where they were in our common spaces. So that has definitely been a change to how we would prefer to operate, but it's kind of in the best interest of those that we're already serving as well, kind of finding a middle ground. And similar to what Debbie had said, for the most part, if we say, hey, I see your clearance card and I'm so happy you have it, we are going to need a negative COVID test. We'll help them find a place to get the test. We'll help them check their results should that require internet access or something like that. And if we say, unfortunately, we can't let you sleep here overnight until we have that result, most of the time they do, come up with some type of temporary arrangement until they do get those results. And that's been the hardest adjustment for us, because we much prefer to be, here, like actively here and ready for them to come in. But as we have had a number of folks come up positive, and there's a whole nother follow-up to that, it impacts quite a few people, and some of the folks that we serve are incredibly vulnerable. So that's kind of what our process looks like.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a real concern, considering you have kind of a congregate situation there with COVID. And we've had a lot of specific discussions about COVID over the last year and a half here, so I don't want to harp on it too much, because we have discussed a lot of these things. But I am curious, as you bring it up, what kind of is the process for someone that shows up now and needs to get a negative COVID test? And Debbie and Neil, I don't know, I can't remember if you said this was also currently a requirement for you. How do you go about getting a homeless individual to actually get a test, as far as transportation and all of that, and get that process completed? I imagine that's a little difficult.
Yeah, we have, this is a hard question to answer, because we kind of feel like we're playing a little bit of Russian roulette, because we are allowing them to come in and then have a COVID test within 48 hours of that. So we would prefer to have it as Joanna had said, but considering our times of screening and all of that, we're just going to play Russian roulette. It's bad. We do have rooms that are set aside as quarantine rooms. If someone is COVID positive, or if they're symptomatic, or if they've been around somebody with COVID, we put them in a room that has a bathroom. They're family rooms, really, that has a bathroom, and we bring meals to them. And many of them we take out for smoke breaks and sterilize on our way out and our way back in. And so that's pretty intensive work to do, but we try to keep everybody else safe. And fortunately, the health department has helped us with that. I think that program is over, but if they were positive, then they were put in a hotel until they were negative. So yeah, we don't like what is, as Joanna said, we don't like the way we're doing it. I do feel like we're playing Russian roulette. We've had the residents go out and be tested every 2 weeks. It's hard because fewer people are doing it. And, Walgreens has a drive-through. Well, our folks have to walk through. It's a little dehumanizing. So we are working with the program that Joanna told us about through the state of Illinois, and we will be testing our residents every 2 weeks here. So that'll be a better deal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak on it as well. I mean, really what's super important here is keeping in touch with the health department and other providers in the community that are still doing COVID tests. I think that there's been quite a shift from testing to vaccinations. So we're seeing a lot of the resources that were available kind of pare down or go away. And so just being really mindful to stay in communication with different places that are providing testing, understanding what dates and times that they're available, how the person needs to access them. For example, going out to, the testing site at the fairgrounds, it's preferred that someone pre-register, but in order to do that, you have to have an email and you have to have a cell phone and trying to find what testing process would work best, even at sometimes utilizing prompt care services or something along those lines. And also, like I said, there's a program that we're utilizing. It's a federal program that allows us to complete saliva, like those shield tests on site. So, having folks that are interested in shelter, should the timing work out right, because it's done kind of once a week over here, we can include them in that test as well. And that was just a random happenstance that resource was shared with me, and it's been about 4 weeks or so, and it's been going relatively well for the on-site testing.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Neil, I don't know if you have anything to add to that one as far as your process or dealing with that.
The one positive thing about having them isolated with shelter with us is that we can just meet them where they are. The McLean County emergency management testing sites know me very well. Bring our youth in, hop in the back seat of the van and we'll drive through and get you tested. So we do that on an individual basis based upon what they've got going on. And yeah, but it's not necessarily a requirement for entry. So we can assist folks even who are currently dealing with a case. So.
Terrific. Okay, so it kind of sounds like all shades here, just kind of dependent on what your unique situation is and how people are being housed. And so it's good to hear that. I think it's also important to highlight how some of these resources that we wouldn't think twice about aren't necessarily accessible to our homeless population, whether it's transportation or access to a computer or a cell phone. I appreciate highlighting that. Our next question is just kind of another general one. So speaking not only about your own organizations, but maybe resources that you are excited about, What resources for both homelessness and mental health are out there that you would like to highlight in the community?
We have found that Chestnut is, we go to them a lot with both substance abuse and mental wellness issues. I'm thrilled that we have a good relationship with them and that they're there for our community. They can only do so much, and they have a limit on how many people they can serve too, but I'm just really, really thankful for them, as well as triage that you provide, Kevin. That has been really good too. So
I
thank
swear
you.
I'm not fishing for any sort of compliments or to highlight triage, but I do appreciate you mentioning it. So thank you very much. Are there other, just to talk about Home Sweet Home a little bit more, were there other resources that you guys offer besides housing? And I know you talked about some of these things. Are there other things that you didn't highlight that you guys offer to residents there that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, and I realize that we didn't talk about our rapid rehousing and Bridge of Hope programs. And that is when someone comes into shelter, one of the first things we want to do is to get them to feel safe and to kind of just have a place to breathe. But as soon as possible, we want to see get them ready to be housed. Our goal is not to keep them at Home Sweet Home. Our goal is to help them be housed on their own. And so we provide a rapid rehousing program, which gives case management for about 3 to 4 months after they're out of the shelter. We have some parameters. PATH also has a rapid rehousing program. Ours is not funded through HUD, so our parameters are a little different. We have some specific requirements of those going into rapid rehousing, like they have to have a job that will pay for their apartment after our finances are titrated out. And we help them pay outstanding utility bills that they can't get housed if they have an outstanding utility bill. So we will do that. And a lot of landlords will not work with them if they have an eviction, but we have developed a relationship with several of them that say, okay, if they're from Home Sweet Home, then we'll work with them. And so that's an advantage. We have a similar program called Bridge of Hope, and that connects with churches. Churches are trained and provide 6 to 10 individuals that walk beside, usually families, but we will also take individuals. And they're not there to preach at them or to even bring them into their church. They're there to be the social capital. Any of us could put something on Facebook or on Twitter or something that we would need or a question, and we would have tons of responses. And a lot of our residents don't have that, just don't have the people around that they know. And so the Bridge of Hope group is there to support and encourage and be that social capital and just be another person to talk to. And we also then provide funding like we do in rapid rehousing to get them into housing, and then we gradually get them to take over the payments once they're there. We also have a food co-op. People can be a member of that food co-op, and our philosophy is that we want to teach people how to do for themselves, only really for a sense of dignity. We don't want people to feel like the only way that people think of them are those poor people that need handouts. That doesn't help build dignity. So our food co-op, they come in and work in the co-op for 2 hours and per month, and then they can get a shopping trip. Or if they want to work an hour and pay $5, they get a shot, and they can take as much food home as they want. And then they build relationships with other people in the co-op and are around our staff who are encouraging. And so there are a lot of benefits besides food in that program. those are the major ones that we have. We are going to be in the future have a community center where our Mission Mart used to be, and that will enable us to bring in other agencies, and several agencies can be there at one time, and a resident of ours or just someone from the streets can come in and meet with somebody like from Chestnut or Path or wherever. But we're not quite up to speed on that yet.
That's all terrific. Thank you, Debbie. Neil, same question to you then. What other resources within your own organization, as well as maybe others in the community that you're excited about?
Well, as far as other things that Project Oz does specifically, that's very related to this, in coordination with NAMI, we're also in every high school and middle school and public one in McLean County, giving our Ending the Silence presentation, which is about mental health awareness, suicide prevention. Debbie is one of our volunteers that helps present that program. I myself, Colleen O'Connor, you might have seen, and if you check the YouTube channel for this behavioral health forum, you could see us give those same presentations from last year and maybe the year before. Some stuff is on there, so check it out if you're interested. But Project Oz also does drug prevention in schools in McLean County as well. We also have counselors in the schools, in all the public high schools. We're branching out into junior highs and grade schools as well, just to provide kids with additional people to reach out to. And that's actually, it's been really wonderful. It's been weird to have so many homeless high school students this school year. Unfortunate. However, being somebody who's not working in the schools, it's been really wonderful to have them, reach out, and then they have somebody in school for them daily, and then I pick them up after school, and it's just, we're all connected, and that's been really helpful to help get them to the places they need and help them feel supported. I will say the major thing that I want to highlight is the support groups that NAMI is doing. Finding providers is very difficult. That is something that we all have recognized. And so self-support, groups have really been able to scratch that itch for a lot of people. There's no cost associated with them whatsoever. The ones that are run through the state, 3 of the maybe 10 presenters are all from our local chapter here in Bloomington. And so I would suggest that if people are interested in those online groups, that they can go to wherever, they can go check that out at namiillinois.org. Our in-person groups are starting back up. The next one's this Saturday at Morning Star Church on Fort Jesse Road at 1 o'clock. We have both our in-person connection recovery, which is individuals who are living with a mental health condition. That's where I would be. They also have a family support group. So for those who are trying to be supportive and of a family member with a mental health condition, want to have a like-minded community to share some of those things, we have those meetings simultaneously but separate. So a family might show up and split up so that they're both getting the support they need. I also would love to highlight Integrity Counseling right now. They are a pay what you can counseling service off of Morris Avenue. It's just 2 blocks south of Project Oz. I have recommended a lot of clients there who, for whatever reason, are not able to get counseling in another fashion. They thrive on volunteers, people, counselors giving their time, but also people paying whatever they're capable to do to help keep the doors open. So I think that they are serving a very essential role in the community right now.
Awesome, thank you, Neil. And then Joanna, the same question to you. Any services or resources that you'd like to highlight, not only within your own organization, but in the community as well?
I will say a majority of the resources I kind of had jotted down. Neil and Debbie have already covered. We have a really good network of support here, you know, in the community, and there's room for growth, but there's a lot of you know, really great program and connections that folks can make just as of right now. A couple other programs that are specific to the Salvation Army here in Bloomington. So we provide shelter services, which is that overnight, you know, emergency shelter, and all of the folks that use that have access to a case manager to kind of help them get organized, identify their needs, make a plan to make sure their needs are provided for. We also provide something that we just call day services. It's something that we kind of do in collaboration with PATH. There are folks that are, as Neil mentioned, staying on the streets, staying in a vehicle, kind of just staying in different situations other than shelter. Shelter might not be their preferred way to sleep or have residence. So, you know, we want to respect that choice and allow them a place to, you know, use the telephone, take a shower, have a meal, do their laundry, store their belongings. So we have a program run in conjunction with the shelter program that provides basically everything that the shelter residents here get. Those that are, you know, verified as homeless can utilize here as well. And additionally, we have an employment program here that is open to anybody experiencing homelessness in McLean County, or anybody who has experienced homelessness within the last 6 months. And with that employment program, we have a full-time staff member and a part-time staff member. The part-time staff member, that is his sole responsibility, is to assist, you know, those that are seeking some help with making job connections. We do everything from helping them create a resume to assisting them with the technology of going online and applying to jobs. Creating emails, making sure that they have a telephone that they can use to receive calls as they are putting in applications. We also have a clothing pantry here where we utilize donated items and provide them to those that maybe have a job interview but don't have, you know, a proper shirt, or need a pair of black pants or something very specific for a uniform for a job. And then the last little part of that employment services program is transportation. So we do receive bus passes, and we have an ability to write cab vouchers for those that maybe have just gotten a job, but they have no idea how they're going to get to and from up until they get their check and start earning their own income. So we will typically pay for them to get to and from work up until their first full paycheck. And the decision on whether it's a bus or a cab kind of depends on a couple of different factors. And that, once again, is done in coordination with PATH as well. And then we also have a vehicle available for client use. Our part-time employment specialist, Dave, will drive people around in the community, kind of eliminating the time spent on the bus or walking to drop off applications, go to interviews, go to their drug screen, whatever it is that they need to do that's employment related. So that's a big resource. Like I said, anybody that's homeless in the area, that can really be helpful. You know, we also have here at the Salvation Army a financial assistance program to help.
Can you guys still hear her, or did the audio cut out? Joanna, it sounds like your audio might have just cut out mid-sentence there. All right, looks like her audio is off completely, so something might have happened. I know that there. Oh, there we go. Joanna, can you hear us now?
Yeah, we got stuck. I guess we're affected by Comcast outages today.
Yeah. If you just want to kind of go where you left off, I'm not exactly sure where you were at in the middle of your sentence there.
I guess we just have. I'm not quite sure where I was either. I was kind of just on my own little world.
You were just finishing up about the vehicle.
Okay, wow, that was a bit of a gap there, huh?
It happened.
Okay. Well, we have a vehicle that we can drive people around, drop off applications, pick up applications, go to interviews, go to drug screens. those types of things that are employment related. And then all of our assistance programs that are available to the general community, such as rent and utility assistance, or that other financial housing assistance, as well as our food pantry and our personal hygiene pantry is open to the residents as well once they're housed or with the process of getting housed. So those are a little bit about what we do. And as I said, a lot of the resources, have already been mentioned, a lot of those other community resources by Neil and Debbie. So I don't know if I have one left over to share that's new. One thing that's really nice is we have a volunteer art therapist. She's a certified art therapist. She comes every other week to kind of just sit and hang out with the residents in our common area. And, should they want to chat privately or they just want a safe, quiet space to be creative and be with, somebody that's kind of trained to be attuned to their needs. That's a newer partnership that we've had that's been really, really wonderful.
That's neat.
Awesome. Sounds like you have a lot of good resources. I really like that art therapy. That's not one you get to see too often, but I really love that. So kind of a last, maybe a more all-encompassing question is, what can individuals and our community do now to create positive change for the future, dealing with homelessness and this intersection of mental health and homelessness? I'm going to pick on one of you.
As I think about this, I go back to Neil and Joanna both said the stigma. If every person could in our community could recognize that mental wellness really affects every single one of us. We're all on a continuum, and to look at someone as a person, as a human being, not as someone who is homeless. We talk about people experiencing homelessness, not a homeless person, because that doesn't define them. That just is, describing their situation. And the same is true with those experiencing mental wellness issues, and give them a chance. If you are afraid to hire them, just give them a chance. Talk to them about what challenges they might have and what accommodations you're willing to make. And the same is true with housing. Give them a chance. That's I think what I would want the community to do is to just reach out and not be afraid, to give somebody a second chance. I really wish we had in town a more permanent supportive housing. We have some, but I know we have some folks at Home Sweet Home. We have had them and we'll continue to have them that kind of go from community to community because they need a lot of extra help when they are living alone. And it wouldn't take a whole lot to just have a staff member on duty and in some kind of permanent supportive housing, and I'd like to see more of that.
Absolutely, great answer. So same question I'll go to you then, Neil.
Well, I almost forgot. We had invited somebody from Mayor's Manor, which is a permanent supportive housing complex here in town, to be on this panel, and they were not able to make it. Mayor's Manor is specifically housing for people with some form of disability. It's provided them a more supportive location to live and have staff there while still maintaining a large degree of independence. We need more beds. We need more. Bloomington Housing Authority needs to be building some new expansion rather than simply maintaining what's already there. Our need is growing. If you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a lot of money, I'm real busy. send an email to the housing authority or to your local representative, whether that be Normal or Bloomington. Tell them to reach out to the housing authority and get movement started on asking for more supportive housing to be built. Right now, it's not like it's not as if you know, they're unwilling to do that, but they're just not hearing enough outreach. So that's the one thing that you could do that could make a huge difference. If you were a landlord right now and you have openings, give a call to Home Sweet Home, give a call to Project Oz. We have you know, programs where we're helping to subsidize rent, and we're having a hard time finding landlords and places that that can accept us. So if you yourself are in a position to develop a relationship, please do. We would love it. Recognize, again, Debbie just said this, but recognize that when you have a mental health condition, every single thing in your life is harder. I live with social anxiety. If I was in front of a room of all of you guys as opposed to online, it would be really a lot tougher for me. And so I'm very happy to do it in the comfort of my living room. But think that just very basic things that we do when we're living with mental health conditions, we have to manage ourselves more. So when you have somebody who has lost everything for one reason or another, and they're trying to build themselves back up, they're going to have to work 100 times harder than somebody who had it all along. And knowing that their struggle is that plus mental health challenges to make that worse, do everything you can to have compassion for them as individuals.
Thank you very much, Neil. And sorry, Joanna, to keep making you go third after these great answers every time. I know it's hard after most of the answer has been given already, but same question to you, I guess. What can individuals in our community do now to create a positive change at this intersection of mental health and homelessness?
Yeah. I believe, you know, one thing that I always tell, like when we have a new staff or a new volunteer, is, you know, the folks that come into our shelter or that are coming here for services in general, the amount of strength that it takes to ask for help and reminding them of a time where maybe they had to asking them to recall a time where they had to ask for help and it was difficult, but also, you know, how people are treated in the community. This might be one of the only places where they go and somebody smiles and says hello and treats them with compassion and kindness. And trying to have people not only utilize that kind of mentality while they're here, but when they're out in the community, and they have a moment of time and they see somebody's upset, take a moment and ask, or say hello or smile at them. It's the small acts that really, I think, can be powerful and really impact, you know, folks and using your spaces of voice. For example, I'm like member of the Bloomington Rotary Club. So whenever, you know, somebody says something that was perhaps a little harsh or uninformed, you know, using your voice to share perspectives that folks might not often see just because it's not a part of their life and they're not kind of entwined with it. And that's kind of my thing is kind of building a tree where each person you touch, you can connect and send that on to the next person. It's probably a little bit, I don't know, of a more relaxed kind of approach to it rather than formal, but you know, just utilizing your voice in your space. This is our community and we live here and we have a responsibility to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable, you know, as a population together and being open and having dialogue are kind of my general thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Those were all really thoughtful answers. At this time, I'd like to now open it up for questions from our audience. If you do have questions, please put them in the question section on your sidebar. I'm also additionally going to add my contact information as well as a link to our website and the YouTube page in the chat. If you have any questions for myself or today's panelists, you can reach out to me using my contact information available there. Additionally, if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, you can still reach out to me at any time to get answers to your questions related to homelessness and mental health, or any questions specifically you may have for our participants here today. I did have one question come in about halfway through, but it looks like it might have been answered because our answers were so robust, but I'll read it anyway. It says, I have a question about stigma. It seems that many people judge and dismiss people who are experiencing homelessness and don't really see them as full community members, even though they are. Do you have any recommendations for how we can help the people we know practice more compassion for people who are experiencing homelessness? So I think this is very much like what all three of you really said already, and being more compassionate and dealing with that stigma. Is there anything specific that you could add to help better answer that question?
You know, I did an exercise last year. We have a yearly fundraiser slash learning tool called Night in the Car. And I had an activity in which I started out with an illustration of a family that didn't exist. I just made it up. Of a nice, happy family, you know, from a nice neighborhood. Everybody's fine, everybody's happy. And at the end of the story, mom and children are homeless. And I asked throughout the story, if you were to determine now whether this person would be homeless, what would you say, on kind of a sliding scale? And, you know, we're talking about stereotypical high school cheerleader marrying a football player and all of this, and she ended up homeless. And this stuff can happen all the time. And so, you know, I would say educate yourselves on, you know, these aren't a bunch of lazy people. And I don't know about Neil and Joanna, but I get really, I kind of get my ire up when people say, well, they just need to get a job. Please don't ever say that to any one of us. That's very insulting, as well as, I hope you wouldn't say that to someone experiencing homelessness. There are so many aspects to this. If you have a hard time recognizing what people go through, please call me. I love to talk about that. Just try to see where they might be coming from.
Neil or Joanna, anything to add to that?
I do, but I'll let Joanna go first.
Okay.
You know, I just think it's really important that it's kind of already been said, but we should care about other people. And we should just, that's it. We should care about other people. You know, getting involved in the community, you know, reaching out, you know, to see if you can take a tour of the shelter and kind of see what exposing yourself to situations outside of your comfort zone and letting that exposure inform you better, so that when you see somebody, we call it flying a sign out by the Walmart or Market, you know, you will have a different opinion than maybe you did prior to intentionally educating yourself. Yeah.
I think it's the same sort of things that that we will share with the high school students. Is how do you be a good friend to somebody who is being bullied for mental health concerns? And it's just simply to not tolerate it. If a friend or family member, you know, talks down about somebody in front of you, don't tolerate it. Say something. No, that's not acceptable. You don't. I'm not going to let you do that in front of me. You can't forcibly change people's minds. People who want to learn, who are interested in reaching out and having experiences, meeting the you know, people as humans, they're going to get to. There are some people's minds you're not going to change, though, and for them, just not allowing them to create an environment where that's okay to talk that way. And for another option, that's something that I found last year. There is was made specifically to kind of simulate a homeless experience. It's called Change, a Homeless Survival Experience. It is a video game. you just Google change a homeless survival experience, and it basically puts you in the shoes of somebody who is struggling to to follow the rules of the shelters, to get to do all the very basic things that you forget that are necessary. And I think if somebody's looking to build some empathy on their own, that would be a great thing to suggest to them.
That sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to check that out. But I agree with what everyone said here. I think just having zero tolerance for that type of negative language is super important. But I really agree those immersive experiences that I've seen take place in this community can really bring back some of that humanization of homeless people that I think is sorely missing a lot of the times. So we did have a couple of other questions roll in here real quick. The next one is, what kind of housing is available for someone with a criminal background that is experiencing homelessness?
I will start with that since we offer rapid rehousing and Bridge of Hope. The people that are hardest to house are people that have a sex offense. Other crimes, we can usually get around, but that one, unfortunately, is the hardest one. If it is a felony, we speak on their behalf, as we develop relationships with property owners or property managers, we try to walk beside those folks and say, yeah, they made a mistake, but let's give them another chance. Right now, let me just say though, right now there isn't much housing to come by right now. They're just, the apartments that are coming up have already been filled before the people are even gone by other applications for housing. So that's a real problem right now.
I would also recommend that anybody who has a record of some sort, if you are not actively on parole or probation, if you have served those, expungement is a process that you can and deserve to go through. If you need help with that, I highly recommend Prairie State Legal, reaching out to them. I help my clients with that when appropriate. So understand your rights around getting that record sealed, because other people are doing it and you deserve to too.
Yeah, that's a great resource to mention. Definitely one that people don't think about when they're trying to overcome that issue and get into housing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Joanna, I don't know if you have anything to add on that one.
I was just kind of reflecting, and I think, Debbie really pointed out a couple of the situations that we have that are really, really challenging. And sex offenses is absolutely one of them, as well as backgrounds. I mean, really, with the market the way it is, people are looking for ideal tenants because they can, because they know that it's really, really, really tough to find vacant apartments right now. And they're going to wait until they get somebody that they know looks good on paper, that presents well, that maybe has, all of their finances already in order. They're not wanting to take chances because of the way that the last year and a half has been. So that's just been a really big struggle all around. Even, criminal history, those with mental health, concerns, all around, it's been really difficult.
Great. Our last question here is kind of in that same vein again. Would you support a law that would prevent landlords from denying a tenant because of their source of income, such as income from wages versus benefits from PATH?
Let somebody else answer first. I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think I do.
I'll read it again and go ahead, Neil.
Yeah. A lot of my clients lately are getting their main source of income from Uber or Lyft or from DoorDash. And when calculating income, and if they have an income requirement, those type of jobs that are non-salary based, they're not a necessarily consistent, they're not counting towards as income towards that. I definitely think that as our economy starts to change, as we are, switching more into that gig economy, we need to be more flexible. And a law probably is going to be necessary, because otherwise landlords will just continue to say no. And I honestly would prefer that we get to a situation where companies and landlords are changing their minds, and then people are seeing the benefits of that, thus changing the minds of other people. But if we can't get there fast enough to support our people, then I would support a law change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really nuanced part to point out there, with the gig economy and those types of jobs becoming more prevalent, and them being maybe easier to get for people that are experiencing homelessness sometimes, if they just have a car or something like that. That's really interesting to bring that up.
Well, and I'll say, at the Salvation Army, a lot of the folks that we work with receive Social Security income. And a big barrier is that, as cost of livings and just different things have significantly increased, most folks' Social Security stays at about less than $800 a month for a single individual. So ways that landlords and landlords all have their own preferences, not all of them, but a majority of housing providers, private housing providers, ask that somebody make 2 or 3 times the rent. The monthly rent, and that's just not feasible for somebody with a fixed income, like with $800 or less a month. So it almost seems that there are already processes in place to eliminate those that have fixed income. So that completely eliminates them from entire large housing providers in the community. And then we're turning to private landlords. And, I definitely think that something like kind of preemptive has already been put in place, and I'm being supportive of laws that would either make fixed income more livable wage, or that would and give folks more opportunities to have access to decent living arrangements. It's absolutely supportive of that.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot to kind of unpack there with how that whole system works, and the changes that we might need to make from a couple of different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it as far as the questions that we have today from our audience. I want to thank everyone that participated today in today's forum session. I know there was some internet outages today, so if you've come in and out, I really appreciate you hanging in there with us. Again, this video will be available on our YouTube page, and we do have upcoming forum sessions here in the near future. So if you want to check out links for either of those, they are in your chat bar. But thank you all for joining us today, and I will see you in the next forum session. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks.